Hello everyone. In today's video, we would be discussing the features of C2 cervical vertebra, also known as the axis vertebra. So the identification of axis vertebra is done by this strong tooth-like process projecting upwards from the superior surface of the body, which is known as the dens or the odontoid process. This odontoid process, which in Greek means, it's a Greek word which means tooth like looking process. This dens has two facets, one on its anterior surface that fuses with the facet on the posterior surface of the anterior arch of the C1 cervical vertebra, and another facet is on its posterior surface which fuses with the transverse ligament. After the dens, if you see the body of the C2 cervical vertebra, this entire is the body. It has got four surfaces, that is superior surface. The superior surface of the body is fused with the dens, and on each side it is encroached by the superior articular facets. The inferior surface, that is this surface, the inferior surface of the body, has a prominent anterior margin which is projecting downwards. This anterior margin of the inferior surface, you can see here, is projecting downwards, and the anterior surface of the body has a prominent ridge, a prominent median ridge, on each side of which there are hollowed out impressions. On both the sides there are hollowed out impression, and in the center, in the median plane, the anterior surface of the body has a median ridge. Next, we would be discussing the features of the vertebral arch. That is, all the remaining parts now are part of the vertebral arch. So firstly, the pedicles. So in case of the C2 vertebra, the pedicles are concealed by the superior articular process. And if we talk about the vertebral notch, the inferior vertebral notch, as you can see here, is deep, wide, and it is placed in front of the inferior articular process. These are the inferior articular facets. This is the inferior articular process, and in front of the inferior articular process, there is the inferior vertebral notch, which is deep and wide. And the superior vertebral notch is shallow. It is placed on the upper border of the lamina behind the superior articular process. So the two vertebral notches are not of equal depth, unlike the vertebral notches of the typical cervical vertebra. Next to the pedicles are the laminae, and the laminae are thick and strong. The transverse processes, these are this is the one transverse process and this is the another transverse process. These are very small in comparison to the transverse process of the other cervical vertebra. They are very small and they only represent the true posterior tubercles. And there is presence of foramen transversarium, which is the identification feature of every cervical vertebra, whether it's typical or atypical. So the foramen transversarium can be seen here also, and it is directed upwards and laterally. The spinous process or the spine of the C2 is large and thick in comparison to the spines of the other vertebra of the same category. It is very, very strong. The spine is very strong, and on its inferior side, it is deeply grooved. There is a deep groove on its inferior side. The spine is bifid. It is split into two, and on its terminating ends, it bears two rough tubercles. There are two rough tubercles on its terminating ends. So it is bifid, thick, large, strong. On inferior side it is grooved, and the bifid they terminate in rough tubercles. Now the remaining feature is related with the articular process. So there are two articular processes: superior articular process bearing the superior articular facet. They occupy the pedicles and the upper surface of the body. They are large, flat, and circular, directed upwards and laterally. They articulate with the facets on the atlas vertebra forming the atlantoaxial joint. These two are the superior articular facets, flat, circular, large in size, and these here are the inferior articular facets which lie posterior to the transverse process. These are the transverse processes, and these are the inferior articular facets on the inferior articular process. They are directed downwards and forwards, and they will articulate with the superior articular facets on the third cervical vertebra, which is the typical cervical vertebra. So these all were the features of the C2 cervical vertebra, that is dense, which is the key identification feature for C2, the body, which has four surfaces and corresponding features, the transverse processes, the spinous process here, the articular process with the inferior articular facet and the superior articular facet. And yes, this huge foramen that you see here is the vertebral foramen. So thank you so much for watching the video. Please do like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. There are other videos related with the typical cervical vertebra and with the C1 cervical vertebra. So go and watch those videos to have a better understanding and a complete understanding of the vertebra of the cervical region. Thank you so much for watching the video.